Hello, hey, what's up, guys? And welcome to the latest edition episode of the Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension, where time does not exist and the only thing that matters is film. That's Jay, I am Cole, and as Jay is showing us all here, that tonight's episode, we're doing our second foray into the world of David Cronenberg, as we're big fans of him, and tonight's episode will be The Brood, which, it's funny, we're both big fans, and I've seen most of his movies. This is a movie I had never actually seen all the way through until this week when it was time to do it. It was just, I don't know why. It was just a movie I never really had the opportunity to watch, I guess. It's not like his movies come on TV much or anything like that. And other ones, of course, that I hunted down years and years ago and watched on video in whatever format. This one, I don't know. It wasn't like I avoided it or anything like that. It just didn't work out that way. So for a long time, it was always, one of those movies that I have meant to get around to seeing, and I just didn't for whatever reason. And as I said, I'm such a big Cronenberg fan. I've read so much on him and stuff like that I kind of already knew everything that happens in the movie well before I ever saw it. But still, it was gratifying to finally see it. So yeah, sorry about last week. I hated missing a week in October, but luckily we still have 2 more weeks in October to go, as Halloween falls on a Wednesday this year. So we can do a kind of neat Halloween one the night before. That'll be fun.
Cool.
But as we got into the twisted stuff, we thought it'd be cool to get another Cronenberg in there, and I thought I used it as an excuse. Yeah, I was like, yeah, finally I can see The Brood because I hadn't seen it, so that's what we went with.
Well, so 39 years ago, David Cronenberg helped create a negative stigma around mental illness.
Sure, yes. Yes, just like his brother-in-arms, John Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, people, give me a break.
Yeah, that was funny. Somebody put that on Twitter the other day, but I mean they were serious about it. But referring to the Halloween film.
Oh man, yeah, I saw Halloween last night in the theater. That was fun.
Is that what you were thinking about the whole time? How this is just creating a negative.
Oh yeah, for the whole 2 seconds that they show the Institute or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, he's a psychopathic killer. I don't really know if he's gonna get any sympathy points for being mentally ill. I mean, come on.
I mean, really, the whole point of the movie is Loomis saying that it's not a mental health issue. He stresses it over and over again. He's like, no, this isn't a person who's mentally ill. That's why I couldn't treat him, and I just want him locked up. He's simply evil or whatever. That's the point of the movies. It's not here's somebody who's seriously mentally ill, and this is what they can do when they're out inside. No, the whole point is, kind of a semi-supernatural type horror thing with an embodiment of evil. So I think you'd have to be pretty dim to come away with a view of the movie to thinking that it was making some sort of statement about mental health when the movie actually goes out of its way to say this is different from mental health, right off the bat. That he says it several times, and in the sequels he keeps saying it. It's you don't know what you're dealing with, this isn't a man, and stuff that, all this stuff. So I don't know, so people that want to make a point about how the movie has this negative stick, I don't know. They're just the type of people that are looking for a reason to get offended or not like something,
That's the world we live in, yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm pretty sensitive about mental health stuff. I've gone through quite a bit of it myself. There's some in my family, all that stuff. So I think it's something that does need to be represented well and taken seriously, and it's better for society when we're educated on these things so that we don't think about myths and falsehoods and stuff like that. I'm definitely a sensitive individual when it comes to that sort of stuff. And Halloween, no, not at all. Come on, people. I was really amazed by the sound. It was really great hearing the sound of Halloween that way. I'd never seen it with surround sound or anything before. Just how, and again, it just, we've talked ad nauseum on the Sausage Factory and stuff like that about what an effective, great movie it is and stuff, and I'm not going to go over that again, but I'm just going to say, being able to see it in the theater with the big sound around me, once again, just sort of reinforced just how effective the soundtrack is and how well it's used to, create atmosphere and tension and stuff, and how even in moments where, it doesn't seem like much is happening, you're still very much engaged in the moment, and you're not bored by it. At least I don't know. Who knows what modern audiences would consider? But I mean, that whole part, like just before the final act, where uh, Laurie has realized that like she can't get through to the other house anymore. The phone cuts off, and the house goes dark, and she decides she's just going to have to leave. She's going to have to go across the street and check the house. Like that whole, it takes her like I don't know, like more than a minute to walk from one house to the other, and the camera stays on her the whole time. And you might think that's really boring, watching her simply cross the street. It's taking forever, but like no, it's done. Got such great sound and everything that it's just a really chilling moment.
It's part of the suspense.
Yeah.
But do you know what cut that was? Was that like a digital cut or like a Blu-ray or?
I don't actually know for sure. Ryan and I had our guesses about it. It looked so clear that we wonder if it was some sort of 4K transfer or something like that.
That wouldn't surprise me.
So that was maybe what we thought. Because there's a few things that look so clear that it's kind of like, they probably didn't want it to look like that clear when they originally made the movie. Like you get such a good. There's a couple times where you get a really good look at Michael, like in the early scene where he steals the car and he jumps off the roof of the car. Like you get a really good look at him there. Whereas I'm used to seeing it look a lot darker. And the same thing too, where she pulls the mask off him, you get a really good shot of his face. Where it used to be more shrouded in shadow. Like now you can really see his face and stuff. And part of me wonders if that's kind of an unfortunate side effect of it. And
it is.
But I mean, it doesn't ruin it by any means or anything like that.
Well, you can kind of see the seams and stuff that were originally, like you said, hidden, by the quality of the film.
Yeah, but it doesn't ruin like any of the really great moments, like the whole thing where Michael's like emerging from the darkness and stuff. That all still looks absolutely great in the way it's supposed to look. Like it's not like he appears too early or it's too bright or anything like that. Like it's done well. It's still effective.
Yeah. Well, cool. I'm glad you got to see that. That's one I haven't gotten a chance to see in the theater yet.
Yeah, the only other Halloweens I've seen in the theater were H2O and Rob Zombie's first one, and those were not good experiences. H2O, I was young and it was fine. I wasn't as big a Halloween fan as I am now, or even as big a horror movie fan. So I was more or less satisfied with it at the time. It was sort of a fun thing. I saw it on a double bill with Scream 2, and they were both enjoyable. But within the context of the series and stuff, you really see how kind of watered down H2O is and how it's part of that newer. I mean, I love Scream, and I'm glad that Scream came along and revitalized the genre and got things going again. That's probably why H2O even managed to come out, because Scream actually got people interested in slashers and stuff again, and they were like, hey, here's a good chance to revive the series because it's going to be the 20th anniversary and we're going to make this big movie. And I get everything they do in it, but again, it's just too watered down. Too many people live, the kills are kind of blasé, and I mean, the tone is too goofy with LL Cool J and all that stuff. And
I think riddled with problems with production, stemming to being affiliated with the Weinsteins.
So I don't consider it an awful movie or anything like that. And then, of course, the other one I saw was the Rob Zombie film, which I do consider a completely awful movie. But again, there's not much time for us to go into our hate tirade on those. But
so you missed Resurrection, huh?
Yeah, I had no interest in Resurrection when it was coming out. I mean, I did see it, but I didn't see it in the theater. I had no interest.
I think I've seen everything from H2O on, so I've seen all the terrible stuff.
And see, that's the same thing. I wasn't dumb enough to see Rob Zombie's second Halloween because I'd already seen the first one, so it's like, yeah, okay.
It's always like, oh man, he really got it right this time. There's all this talk about how good it was going to be, and
I did think it was like, I knew because of the tone and the way he does things, it would still be garbage. But I did actually hold out some hope for 2 being at least slightly better because I thought, well, at least they got the origin crap that I hated so much out of the way. But no, they didn't. They bring up even more in part 2, and I also thought it can't be this white trash because they're just going to be in a different place. But it doesn't matter where you go; everywhere's white trash or Rob Zombie. They could go to Greenland and it would still just be a bunch of like white trash people.
I mean, I think Rob Zombie's from like Wisconsin or something. Like he's not.
Yeah, but
Like
he's
he
in love
grew
with
up.
like that sort of 70s southern United States type of vibe, and
Well, I mean, he's like constantly trying to rip off Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? So
yeah, to the point there, his movies don't make sense in a way. Like it's one thing if you said it in that, but like Halloween doesn't make sense
no,
because I mean, again, you could say, well, this is an intentional, and I'm sure it was intentional. So I guess it's not exactly a criticism, but again, maybe you shouldn't have intended this because if you watch Halloween, it's clear that the first stuff when he's a kid is at the latest the early 80s. And then it says 17 years later, which would have made it somewhere like maybe in the late 90s. But nothing that happens because people talk on cell phones that are from 2004 and beyond. Nobody listens to music from after 1990. They drive cars from the 70s. Like, it's just this weird amalgamation of stuff that he likes. And I've seen that in other movies, most notably, we talk about it a lot in It Follows,
mm.
where it follows like there, yeah, and again, it just comes from the filmmakers of that generation being obsessed with the old generation, and they just want to shove all that stuff into their movies. I'm like, if you're gonna do that, then at least just like set it in that time. Don't set it in some weird undefined time where you just pick and choose,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is full of what's the word I'm looking for? Anarchisms. Anarchisms drive me nuts. And I know they shouldn't for certain movies. Like, yeah, if it's a historical drama and there's anarchisms, yes, you should be mad at it. But it's more forgivable in other movies. I'm not the type of person that can forgive it even in other movies. I notice them instantly. I think that's more my trigger. Because often there are people that are like really good at watching movies in a technical way and catch things that I never catch. They're like, oh, there's some continuity error here. His wristwatch was different, or this moved
Oh
in the
yeah.
background, or usually that stuff goes by me. I don't
Mm-hmm.
notice it. But the things that I notice are things like anarchisms. They drive me insane, and just because I feel like there's to me they're up there in neon lights yelling at me is how I feel. But that's just because that's the way my brain is wired.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very in tune with historical context and stuff like that. And sometimes people make references that don't make sense within their time frame and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm just like, how hard was it to get this right? And you just didn't. But anyway.
Oh.
So anyway, back to the original point. It was very gratifying to see a good Halloween movie in theaters. And it will serve as the warm-up to I'm going to go see the new one. Because, well, it's the thing to do, I guess. I don't feel really excited about it, but I am at least curious. So, I don't know. Better than nothing.
If it wasn't for the fact that we're going to discuss it on the Sausage Factory, I don't think I would see it at all. I would probably skip it.
Look, I don't think the preview looks that bad, but when we went to see Halloween last night, they showed a few previews, and they ended with like the 90-minute, or not 90-second one. And I guess Ryan has been specifically avoiding that stuff because he'd never seen it before. It's his first time seeing it. He's just like, oh, he's like, I was kind of enthusiastic about this, but now I'm not at all. I was like, oh, I've seen that like 4 times and stuff. But
I think I've only seen maybe the very first teaser where it was just like Jamie Lee Curtis like stockpiling weapons.
yeah, I mean that's good because as per usual, this like ruins several jump scares for us.
Oh man,
Because that's just
why
how
do they
you.
do that? Why do they do that?
I know.
Just be like, it's a new Halloween movie. Go watch it. Like, it's no reason to even show a trailer. But I guess that's for people younger than we are.
I don't know. I still don't get why it's not called Halloween 2. How can the sequel? It's supposed to be the sequel to Halloween. The sequel to Halloween is called Halloween. Okay, it's already super confusing.
Right, more
Yeah,
confusing.
so.
It's so this will be the third movie called Halloween, but it's not a remake. It's a sequel to the original movie. Okay.
Yeah. And it also presents us a third line of continuity.
Good stuff.
I can accept all that, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm at least curious about the first few minutes in the movie because what Ryan and I talked about the most afterwards is like, okay, even though I don't like it, I can accept this idea of we're disregarding the sequels and pretending this is the first thing that happened since Halloween. Fine, I'll accept that. But what I really don't get is like, I want to see how they handle how they handle how Halloween ended, because Halloween has a great ending
Right.
where he's going to get Laurie and Loomis finally catches up to him and shoots him. Was that the boogeyman? As a matter of fact, it was. And then they look out together. He looks out, body's gone. It's like, oh, of course. I should have known bullets couldn't stop him. And now he's out there somewhere. A great ending, And I mean, and I know some people don't even like Halloween 2 that much. I like Halloween 2 and it works in well. But I mean, if you want to sweep all that away, just have Halloween by itself, again, it's a great ending. It's open-ended. Michael's gone. But this is suggesting that he was just arrested later that night. So Loomis shoots him several times, looks out, then feels that wave of dread as he sees that Michael's body is gone. And then what? 5 seconds later, the cops go, there he is. He stumbled into the bushes. We got him. And they just arrest him without fanfare, and then he sits in the asylum for 40 years. To me, that they're really undercutting a really good ending. So I don't know how they're going to explain that, if they're even going to say anything about it, if they're just going to hand wave, or if they're going to say, oh, this happened or that happened. I don't know. But they better at least not undo that, because then they're digging into the one movie they said they wouldn't touch, which is the original. The point was, yeah, we swept the other ones away, but this follows the original. Well, if it follows the original, then it has to follow the original's ending, which again makes it sound like you're really stepping on the ending by taking all the oomph out of it by like, oh yeah, then we caught him.
We got him.
We got him. No big deal.
I agree. It's yeah.
So like, at least the sequels give us this world where like Loomis is constantly tormented by Michael. Like he's blown up with him later that night, then knows he's in custody for another 10 years. He breaks out another 10 years and goes on another few killing sprees until they die together. I mean, we can say what you want about 6, but at least it gives you that. Whereas this suggests that Loomis, the events of Halloween happen, and then Loomis just retires and everything's cool, and he dies well before any of this other stuff starts to happen 40 years later. Because he was dead by H2O. He was dead 20 years later, so he's clearly very dead by 40 years later. So this really, again, to me, really undercuts Loomis's arc. Like, he had sort of one bad night.
Yeah.
He had a pretty bad night, but then we got him, and he went to his grave thinking, well, Michael's still locked up. But anyway, we've talked enough about that, I guess, and we'll get into other things as we do, but we'll get into The Brood. So this is, I guess, not his third ever film, but usually what people consider Cronenberg's third, like, official film after the 2, like, indie films he did. So we count Shivers as sort of the first. So this follows up Shivers, and then, is it Rabid? Is that what it's called? Yeah, Rabid and The Brood. And they all share similar elements. And you can all see how they're kind of an interesting progression, too, if you look at them that way. And they all have things in common, and this movie is usually regarded, even though I like, kind of everything he's done, and I like Shivers and Rabid too, at least critically, this is kind of considered his first, like, good movie. This is, like, where he got going.
Right.
It's certainly where he started to get a bit more of a budget, although really, as we said, the first movie where he really had things going for him was the other movie we covered, which was Videodrome, and that's because of the success of the movie that followed this, Scanners. Scanners was kind of an out-of-nowhere success, even though I don't think it's one that Cronenberg himself rates that highly. It's less personal than a lot of his other movies.
I don't really either. It's Scanners.
It's a bit of an oddity.
It's one that most people really seem to enjoy. I like the film, obviously, but I'm not. It's not one of my favorites or anything of his.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's because most people who like Scanners aren't technically usually Cronenberg fans. They're just more like sci-fi fans, and they think Scanners, oh, that's a cool sci-fi movie that I enjoy. Like, that's usually the vibe I get from people who talk about it and stuff. And then I could be like, well, what'd you think about Dead Ringers? They'd be like, I've never seen Dead Ringers, Or I'd be like, what'd you think of Naked Lunch? I've never seen Naked Lunch, So I think most of the people that really enjoy that film aren't necessarily fans of Cronenberg's, body of work as a whole, as much as I am. And I'm the same way. Like, I think Scanners is fine, but I think he's done way better, more interesting movies. And then it's not like I'm not a sci-fi fan. I am, but and Scanners is another one of. It just seems like anything with like a half decent idea gets like 17 like made for video sequels, and Scanners is like no exception. I don't know how many of those they made, but they made a bunch of They
five.
made at least 4 or
At
5
least
of them.
4. Yeah, I like them all.
I've seen none of them.
They're great. In the U.S., they went to Scanner Cop, but I believe in Canada they kept the name Scanners all the way through 4, I believe.
Yeah, so I've seen none of them, but I don't know. I'm kind of interested.
Yeah, I would recommend it. At least Scanners 2, and yeah, at least part 2.
So anyway, Scanners being the sort of unexpected success it was, that's the film that sort of established him as like a real, filmmaker, and that's where he got the toys, or the keys to the toy chest a little bit, and some more money and backing, and why he was able to start working with better actors and stuff like James Woods in Videodrome and Onward and stuff. So this predates all that. There's no names in this movie that's going to jump out to anybody. Purely Canadian production. I've said this before, but well, again, one of the things I like about Cronenberg is, like, not only is he a Canadian filmmaker, but his films mostly just take place in Canada. He doesn't try to hide it. He doesn't pretend, this is, actually a U.S. city like that. It's like, no, this is in Toronto. And this is one of the only movies I'm aware of that references Halifax, because they say that the father-in-law was living in Halifax, and that's where he flies in from. So I'm like, yay, Halifax. This stuff. So, okay, so as I was trying to say before about them having like similar elements, so Shivers is obviously Shivers and Rabbit a lot have sexuality, and then Rabbit is a bit more on gender roles and stuff. This movie is a lot on gender roles too. In fact, the very opening scene where we get a look at this, so the movie centers on this doctor, whatever his name is, Raglan, who has like this radical new form of psychotherapy. And anyway, so the first scene is people observing him doing like a session with one of his patients to see how it works. And it's very much gender specific, because the whole idea is like there's this guy who's had father issues because his father, I guess, hated him or something like that. And to help bring out the emotions, the doctor does everything he can to emasculate him. He starts like saying like, "Oh, you're like a little girl. I'm not even gonna call you Michael. Your name's Mike. I'll call you Michelle." And he does everything he can to like emasculate him and say how he's not a man and he's not masculine, and really really emphasize how he's like failed in the male role, and he's again he's a weakling. He should have been a girl. All this stuff, calling Michelle. And what we get to see is the results of this sort of psychotherapy, where he tells his patients to go all the way through it, is that if he's successful enough, their inner turmoil, emotions, whatever the issue is, will manifest itself physically in their body in some way, in some sort of physical malady. And I guess the idea is, well, once something's physical, it's much more simple to treat, because we know how to. And if you can, and I guess he means like once I've successfully gotten that, then I guess medical doctors take over, and if they treat it, then not only are they physically cured, but they're also emotionally and mentally cured. I guess that's the idea. So that's what's going on here. And Raglan calls this psychotherapy psychoplasmatics, or something along that line.
Psychoplasmics.
Or plasmics. I added an extra syllable, so psychoplasmics. So that's what we got going on here. Is this? So again, another sort of common Cronenberg theme, going back to even his earlier movies before Shivers, is we have some sort of doctor or scientist. In this case, he's a psychologist, but a lot of his movies focus on a doctor or scientist or something that has some sort of invention or some sort of method or something, and he's going to unleash it on society, and it's going to, all hell's going to break loose in it. In Shivers, it's the weird sex parasite thing that the guy's tinkering with that turns into this crazy outbreak. In Rabbit, it's much more unintentional. It was just, what was it? It takes place at like a plastic surgery institute, and they have to do emergency surgery on the woman after the motorcycle accident, and somehow, through their weird whatever surgery they do, as a side effect, she gets the thing in her armpit that turns her into the weird sex vampire and stuff. So now we've got a third movie in a row where we have and fourth if you go to, again, I can't remember what his first movie is called, but anyway, Stereo, or yeah, I think it's called Stereo. The movie Stereo. Also, the idea is there at the root of all the problems is some like doctor or scientist that has done, some radical weird thing that is now going to start affecting society. So that's happened once again, and he really likes that trope. Scanners, it's a little different, but it's still in there. And then he really flips things around with, and then he really flips things around with it for Dead Ringers, in that it's a little less science. That's less science fictiony and just more psychological and stuff. But
they are doctors also.
Yeah, exactly. They are doctors also. They're not doing anything that there's not doing anything that is science fictiony, but it still turns into its own thing that drives the plot. So so we have that several times in these movies. And I think usually the doctors always wind up getting killed. Raglan himself gets killed in this. He gets killed in a somewhat redemptive way because he's sort of taking responsibility for his actions, and he does try to. He kind of makes a noble sacrifice to save an innocent person. In that he dies getting the daughter Candace out. So anyway, so we got our main character who is the husband of one of Raglan's patients. Unbeknownst to him, she's sort of, as the other patients say, his star patient, the one he's most interested in, this woman with deep psychological issues that we find out eventually, stemming from abuse at the hands of her own parents when she was a child. I guess her mother was really cruel and domineering and stuff, and possibly physically, and where her father wasn't necessarily abusive, but he was just compliant or complacent. He let it happen. He watched it happen. It was just sort of so all the negative emotions, or whatever the stuff, her mental problems, all stems from a deep down, deep-seated anger and resentment she has for her parents, and it will start to manifest itself. And the hook on this is, okay, so backing up to our first guy, usually, I guess, in the other patients, what would happen is when whatever their disorder, their inner problem manifests itself in a physical way, it's usually in something that is, at least known and normal in that sense. Like, I don't know, he gets like boils on his body or something like that, and we find out there's one of the patients that left and wants to sue him because actually his wound up manifesting itself in a form of cancer,
right.
A very aggressive cancer, and but even that is still something that we know. But in the case of this woman, played by Samantha Egger, so her name is Nola. So in the case of Nola, something weird happens, something that's outside the norm, something that hasn't been observed before in medical science, and it turns out into her being able to give birth to these weird little malformed dwarf-like clones of herself, and they act on her feelings without her even knowing, and that's what's going to drive the plot.
She like controls them like that, so
she does, but she's not conscious of it. Okay. She doesn't. She's not actively thinking and sending them out to do these things. She's not aware of what they're doing.
Well, they have a daughter, Candace, and
yes.
The whole thing starts basically. Well, the murdering starts when Candace she comes home with some bruises, and the husband suspects that she's being abused when I guess they have shared custody.
And, oh yeah, right. So I should have pointed out. Yeah, so they're divorced at this point, and they have shared custody. And the other thing is, while the mother is staying at this institute and he hasn't seen her, the daughter does regularly visit her, like every week, because Raglan says that's part of her therapy is to have regular contact with her daughter. So he sees that she's got these bruises and stuff, and suspects that either Nola has been physically abusing her, or he said, one of the other wackos you have locked up here, and I want to find out.
Yet again, negative stigmas
sure.
on mental illness. But
so insensitive.
But so he basically doesn't want her to go see. Was it Nola?
Yeah, he thinks that, as long as Nola's at the institute, he doesn't want his daughter being exposed to it anymore.
Mm-hmm. And then that's when people start getting killed by these little rabid, munchkin, toe-headed I don't know, what do you want to call them? Mutants? What's a good word for these things?
I don't know, dwarfs. No, I guess dwarf is too insensitive too, because there's people that actually turn themselves as dwarfs. Okay, we'll call them mutants. Sure, whatever. They're the brood. They're the brood. We're not trying to offend anybody, people.
And they're really, they're rocking these little, I don't know, what do you call that? Like a parachute material.
Yeah, that's the main thing I wonder about the movie. Like,
Yeah.
she keeps making them. She has like 8 of them. She has like these little like snowsuits for all
Yeah,
of them. They all have little snowsuits. Like, where is she getting those?
they must be really popular because I mean, even all the kids at the school were wearing them. So
Yeah, and Candy's wearing them.
I mean, she's always wearing one, so you always think that she's one of these things.
Yeah, when you see it from behind, and I guess that's on purpose, to
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of see the similarity between herself and her different siblings, as you want to call them.
Well, siblings or clones of her mother,
Sure.
as I guess we'll get there. Uh, so yeah, you're always like, wait, what is that? Is that the daughter? Or is that one of the killer mutant things?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first victim is the grandmother, well, Candace's grandmother, so the mother of Nola, which makes sense because she would have been at the center of her rage and stuff, because since
Right.
she's the one who supposedly. Uh, Now it's never confirmed, and you have to leave it up to your imagination whether or not you believe Nola's claims. You only get a couple scenes with the grandmother, and she does come across as a somewhat harsh type of woman. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to believe that Nola's telling the truth and that she was abusive. But that's just sort of left up to the imagination, and I guess in a way it doesn't really matter, because either Nola believes it or wants to believe it, and that's what fuels everything that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think I mostly do buy that it's true, because I figure her her psychological issues must come from something real. Is
Sure.
how I feel. So I do think I buy it. Although as it's been pointed out, you don't have to. It's not confirmed, so you can just decide for yourself when you see the movie whether or not you think her claims of her parents being abusive towards her are a fabrication, or if they actually happened. But in either case, she either believes it or wants to believe it, and that leads to what happens with her brood. And yeah, so the first one killed is the grandmother while she's looking after Candace, and it's again, I knew everything that happens in the movie even before I saw it, but I have to go back and think about like what it must have been like to see this, like not knowing anything, because even though the movie tells you right away what the therapy does, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to make that next leap in logic and think, oh, these little midget things, I don't know, these little mutant things are obviously some sort of manifestation of somebody's therapy.
Right.
Like, you can understand, once you find out, you understand it, but before you find out, like, I'm sure there were plenty of audiences going, okay, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
What is that thing that just killed her? It's kind of a big reveal once you get to it. Once it's explained, again, you understand. It's like, oh, okay, in her case, this is how it manifests in a really weird, different way. But when you're first watching the movie before that, I'm sure there's plenty of people that didn't make that connection at first.
Oh, I don't think it's possible. I don't think anyone would make that connection.
Yeah. So like for the first part of the movie, when like these little demon children are running around killing people, I'm sure that most audiences are just like, what are they? Where'd they come from? What is this? It does get explained, and I think in more or less a satisfying way. But it's one of those things that's so bizarre that you're probably not going to be able to link it together on your own. You need the movie to explain it for you.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I would love to be in a theater when that was premiering, like that the last like 15 minutes, like that would have been awesome. When she's when it's all revealed and she's eating the placenta and licking the baby.
Yeah. I'm sure you've read that like early on when they were censoring this movie and cutting stuff out, they really cut down on the licking off part to the point that it made it look like she was eating her own baby. And Cronenberg is like, that's way worse than what I was showing. Because early on in the UK and US, I think they there were people that made them censor the scene and cut it way down. And if you watched it that way, it looked more like she was attempting to eat it than actually like lovingly licking it off, which I hear was the actor Egger's own idea.
Oh, man, it's probably what most people would remember about this film. It's what I remember about it. It's the little, the little mutant guys, and then her, like, first of all, she bites this thing open,
Yeah,
and then she takes the baby out, and then like licks the baby like like an animal would do.
yeah.
Which is, and, what?
Well, that
Oh,
was her inspiration. But give Egger credit; she was definitely into the role because it was her own idea.
I disgust you.
Is it? I just thought that when cats have their kittens or dogs have puppies, they lick them as soon as they're born. Lick, 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 lick.
Oh yeah, it's very effective.
Yeah. But yeah. I don't know how well known Cronenberg was, but anybody that was familiar with his work, I guess kind of knew something shocking was gonna come, and that's obviously the pivotal shocking moment in the movie is when she reveals that she has this sort of outside uterus.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that on like most scariest moments or shocking moments in movies or something like that.
Yeah, oh, I read that. It's on one of them is Bravo Channel.
That may be where I saw it.
Bravo Channel had it as number 78 on 100 Scariest Moments. And also, there was a Chicago Film Critics Association 100 Scariest Movies of All Time, and it was number 88 on that. I don't know if it's like people can define scary in different ways. It's disturbing and it's shocking. I don't know if it's scary, but I get where it's coming from.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's really scary at all, but
and as I've said, I've had the benefit of fully knowing what to expect. Like even though I'd never seen it before, I still knew what was happening, what was going to come, and stuff. So it's not the same as somebody coming into this completely cold and then seeing that happen, which is really a great thing. So after the first murder, where does it go from there? I'm trying to remember.
does it kill her father after that?
Yeah, he's the next. So he flies in because her parents were also divorced too. So the father wasn't living there. So the father, as they said, he was out in Halifax. So he flies in, and he decides on his own to go to the old house, I guess, where they used to live when they were a family. And at one point, he gets really emotional about it and drunk and calls up. He's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have come to the old house. All the old feelings are coming up." And that's where one of the children tracks him down to murder him. So he's the next one.
And then is it the teacher next?
Or
is someone in between the?
Well, that's the next person to die. But in between that, there's a part where when Frank, that's our main character, when he arrives at the house and finds the father murdered, he gets attacked by the thing, and and he manages to fend it off, and then it dies.
Okay.
On its own, because that's the other thing we discover about these things is they have a very short lifespan. And then when we finally get some of the explanation, because they bring it in with the cops and stuff, and they have a medical examiner looking at it and explaining what it is, talking about how it basically dies of sort of like a starvation type thing, because they have like this weird growth on their back that's kind of similar to like a hump on a camel or something like that. And the whole idea is like that's the only way they get sustenance, and there's only so much in it. Once it's empty, it dies. So these things only live for a short while once they're born. And that's the other thing. And he says they have to be born in a different way because it doesn't have a belly button. So it must be born in a different fashion than humans are born. And they point out some of the other physical things. They actually make a mistake because he talks about how it's colorblind, but he says it's because the eyes don't have an iris. But if eyes don't have an iris, you wouldn't be colorblind. You'd be totally blind. But anyway, that's just a little
They're
mistake.
missing something with the rods and cones, right?
Yeah, but they say iris in movie. And if you don't have an iris, then you can't see at all. But
iris is what lets the light in. Is that correct?
Yes. But anyway, they mention a few other things like how they don't have teeth, but they have like a weird sort of sharp, beaky thing on the inside of the mouth, and
I feel like they should be way more like excited to be finding this thing. Like,
yeah, no, they act like it's almost like a normal thing.
We just discovered like a new species of human.
Just like, yeah, well, I mean, and before they get their hands on one, even when they're talking about it, when they say it like that had murdered somebody or something like that, they're just like, well, whose kid is it? And it's just like, there's got to be some record. It's like, no, some woman probably had a deformed kid, didn't want anybody to know, so kept it locked up in the attic all these years. Then it got out and killed somebody. They're like, hey, that's a pretty normal thing. Some off the grid freak deformed kid gets loose, kills somebody. It happens. But yeah, so anyway, so that happens.
So they've got like an egg sac on their back, almost like a bird or a reptile or something.
Yeah.
And when that's gone, they're gone.
Yeah. Throughout this whole thing, Raglan has been really standing up for how great his therapy is. Even though we find, this other guy that's ready to sue him over it. And Frank tracks that guy down. He's just like, you're going to be suing him too? And he's like, yeah, I'm building a case too because I want to get my wife away from him and stuff. And the guy even says, I don't expect to win this case because a jury is just not going to understand. They're not going to believe that his therapy caused me to get cancer. He says, it's going to get thrown out in a second, but it's still worth doing it because it's going to give him crazy negative publicity. And even if people don't believe it, what people are going to hear is his therapy gives cancer. So he's all set to bring this guy down in that way. And he kind of has a point. I certainly would be mad if I undertook some sort of radical psychotherapy to help with some sort of psychological issue, and the guy's therapy resulted in me getting cancer that is killing me because it's some sort of aggressive form of lymphoma or something like that. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here, again, sort of Cronenberg's wheelhouse about he has a big fascination with the body and the mind and the way they're related, and he loves like stuff like disease. He is he's the guy that started the whole idea of body horror.
Right.
And this movie is a prime example of it. Because not only do we have like the bodies manifesting stuff, but we have the bodies giving birth to even weirder bodies. So yeah, this is I don't know, if you were going to like make a top 10 of body horror, this has to be on there, I think, The Brood. But yeah, Cronenberg's stuff that he likes to really touch on. And as we said, he was going through a custody battle with his own ex-wife during this, so he kind of puts that into the movie with Frank fighting his character. And that's the other thing that makes it really different from a conventional movie. So obviously the subject matter and how weird it is keeps it from being conventional. But even if we replaced it with something conventional and changed it into something just like, I don't know, some weird thing that was happening to the woman, I don't know, I can't put it in a context that would actually make it make more sense. But my point is, even if you took that out, just its resolution is still weird and not what people would want or expect. And it's something we talked a little about when we did Videodrome, sorry, is that it took quite a while, if you follow his movies in sequence, for him to arrive at any sort of protagonist, specifically a male protagonist, that actually is proactive and successful. And even once you get up to Max in Videodromes, he's not proactive or successful. Finally, we have a guy where everything's about him, but all he is he just winds up being a victim, and he's manipulated to the point where he's doing crazy things, and then he winds up killing himself. So he's a complete failure. But before that, you do have the guy from Scanners, and that's more of an outlier. But before that, you just had, starting in Shivers, a completely ineffective male protagonist that is, the only thing he succeeds in doing is being the last person to be infected in his building. But he can't stop it. He can't help anybody. He can't protect anybody. And then he winds up succumbing. Now, in the second movie, the protagonist is technically the female, the one who's carrying the virus, or whatever you want to call it. And then you have male characters that in no way are able to help her. And if things don't work out for her either, the resolution of that movie is her own death. And it's the only way to resolve the problem. The other people that she's infected, they're the ones that are now rabid. There's no help for them. The only help for them is death too. So it's much of a downer, and the movie ends with her literally being garbage. She gets And this movie is kind of similar too. So now we in that again, if you're used to those movies, this movie it's kind of following a path here, and it makes sense. But again, if you haven't seen those movies or anything like that or anything else by Cronenberg, you might be a little taken aback by the fact that our protagonist male, our hero, who is somewhat proactive, does at least wind up achieving the goal of saving his daughter. In doing this, he has to murder his own wife. And if it's not exactly heroic, is it? Like, she's in there, she's not really doing anything, and he chokes her to death. Now, in the context, we understand, yes, because she's not in control of her emotions, and her emotions are causing the brood to attack, and they're about to kill Candace. So killing her really was the only way, but still, it's the type of thing that audiences are probably uncomfortable in seeing. That our main character, our hero guy, his heroic act is strangling this woman. But that's how it goes with Cronenberg.
You know, that's his ex-wife, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's Cronenberg's ex-wife.
So yeah, if you want to talk about a negative stigma attached to mental health, there's no sympathy for this woman with all her mental issues and stuff like that. In the end, it's just like, well, treatment hasn't helped. Here's the only thing that'll help. We'll fucking kill her.
Yeah.
And they try to make it a little more passable by her, sort of like them showing her going over the edge even more, and she's saying, "Yes, kill me, kill me."
Yeah.
But still, it's still a very jarring thing, I think, for a lot of audiences to see that our male hero protagonist here, like, is just to kill this woman who actually was his wife at one time. That's how he's going to save the day. And then again, if we're talking about being successful, the movie ends on like the beat of showing that Candace seems to be being susceptible to the same stuff that her mother was. Because early in the movie, when Candace is with the grandmother, when the grandmother is talking, she says that even in her childhood, Nola would have those boils or whatever appear in her body. And I guess that's the little hook. Like, if you put it together logically, you get why her therapy acted that way then. Because the idea was, you have people, they have psychological, emotional issues, then they undergo this radical psychotherapy, and it causes them to manifest blah, blah, blah. But the idea with Nola was, without therapy, she was already manifesting stuff on her own as a child. So now, as an adult, when she goes through it, it makes sense, I think, in the context of this movie, that her manifestation would be even more extreme than other people's, because she already had something in her that made her even more susceptible to it. Because they say in her youth that she already had this without psychoplasmics. So the movie does have its own sort of internal logic that satisfies me anyway. I mean, we're dealing with some really weird concepts and stuff, but I do think it hangs together in a way. Like, it doesn't just sound like Cronenberg just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. There is an internal logic to how these things work. So to me, it's satisfying and it works fine.
Sure. I think it's I don't know. I really like the way Rabbit ends. I love endings like that. But I mean, this is kind of a bleak ending too, because it ends with him killing the wife. They save the girl, but then you get to see the daughter Candy as a little
So I mean, she's like her mother.
Right.
That when she goes through some sort of psychological trauma, even without the therapy, she has physical manifestations. So it seems to suggest when she gets older, she could turn out very much just like her mother did. So yeah, kind of a downer ending from that point, but we're getting used to them if you've been watching Cronenberg movies. Yeah, if you're watching Cronenberg movies, and then
I don't like happy endings. They're cliche. And not realistic either, I don't think.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends, right? Like, I'm fine with a happy ending if to me it makes sense. Like,
sure.
But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, sometimes where they'll just like resolve everything suddenly out of nowhere in like unrealistic fashion just to make things happy and stuff. But I'm the same way. And I know it makes me kind of morbid and stuff, because I always talk about how I can't stand how women and children are often protected in movies where there's violence or bad things happening. They'll kill men, like, no problem. And I'm not one of those men's rights people. God, no, I don't give a fuck. But I'm just saying, I don't like how audiences are coddled just because they might be upset by seeing a woman or a child have something happen to it. Like, I'm some sicko who wants to just see a bunch of bad stuff happen to women and children in movies. I'm just saying, in the context of a movie where there's, danger or violence or something bad happening, I don't like how the plot always dictates some magical rescue to come in to keep harm from coming to a character if it's a woman or a child. Like, to me, I just, I kind of want to.
Well, I just want things to be realistic, and in real life, kids get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. I want to see these children get brutally murdered in front of me.
But like we said, it's kind of stupid. Like in a movie full of danger and full of people getting killed, to have like the one moment where it takes you out of the reality, where something totally weird and unrealistic happens just to save the children or whoever it is, because it's like, oh, well, the movie won't go there. It's like, don't worry, we won't do that. And I mean, sometimes it's okay because you have to do that with a protagonist, So if the kid or whatever is a main character, sure. I mean, that's how plots work. Otherwise, your movie ends halfway through. It's like, oh, your main character's dead. So I understand having, like, again, some weird, extreme, maybe semi-unrealistic thing happening to save the character for that. But I don't
know. I love the part there at the end when the doctor's helping him, trying to rescue the daughter. And, she's in the same place with all of the evil mutant things. And they wake up, and he just starts blasting these things, like blowing them away. Man, it just, I love it.
Yeah, and I mean, to his credit, he doesn't actually do that until they're pretty much on him.
Right.
Like, I don't know if it's because he's reluctant to kill them unprovoked, or if he just knows he doesn't have enough bullets. Because he goes in with a gun, but he's hoping to get in and out without anything happening. But once they're on him, he shoots at least 3 down. And there's some really good shots of, like, the bullets just passing right through their bodies and stuff. Some good effects there. Here's the other thing about Cronenberg that might, again, be upsetting to people that aren't used to him or are used to a different kind of movie. Because even certain types of films that have violence in them show violence in sort of a stylized way that makes it easier to take. And in the case of somebody, this is a kind of extreme example, but in the case of somebody like Argento, he can even make it kind of poetic and beautiful. You watch people bleed in those movies, and it's not really upsetting or disturbing. It's almost kind of fascinating and pretty. Like, I remember the last Argento movie I watched probably was Tannenbray, because I bought the Blu-ray not too long ago. Well, actually, kind of long ago. But anyway, and there's, like, a great part towards the end where a woman gets, like, slashed, like, across here, and there's just wonderful blood spray across the wall next to her. And it doesn't seem sick or gross. It seems kind of beautiful in its way. Anyway, Cronenberg is the opposite of that. So when violence happens or things bleed and stuff, it's very icky and it's very and visceral. So that's another thing. So people might have been used to, like, seeing, like, a violent movie or a slasher, although by 1979, slashers were not a big deal at all. So I can't really say there was much of a slasher crowd at the time. But at least for somebody like sometime after, or of course the present, if let's say you've grown up or you've watched a lot of slashers, that does not necessarily prepare you for how violence looks in a lot of Cronenberg's films, and this movie is no exception. You have people getting bludgeoned to death by these little things, and when there's blood on the wall and stuff, it's not poetic, it's not beautiful, it's just icky and scary.
Yeah, I guess it's the two ways to show that.
And it does really upset a lot of people. And I like to talk, and whenever I can find something about Roger Ebert, because he's always been an interesting figure to me, because sometimes, like, I cannot understand what the hell he's thinking, and other times I totally agree with him, and I'm thinking, yes. So anyway, this is one where I don't agree, because this is a movie he fucking hated.
Oh, really?
And was absolutely upset by. He says, disgusting in ways that are not entertaining, as opposed, for example, to the great disgusting moments in Alien or Dawn of the Dead. And even when are there really people who want to see reprehensible trash like this? I guess so. It's in its second week. That's what he said. But yeah, there's somebody. Yeah, Leonard Maltin says, Edgar eats her own afterbirth while midget clones beat grandparents and lovely young school teachers to death with mallets. It's a big, wonderful, wide world we live in.
Spoiler alert, Leonard. Come on.
Yeah, what are you doing? But he's making a point that, like, again, it's that's not the right kind of victim. Grandparents being killed, not okay. A lovely school teacher being killed, not okay. Like, these aren't drunken, horny teenagers out in the woods, you know. So that's the other thing, and that's something that persists to this day. Like, that there are acceptable and non-acceptable targets for, terrible things to happen to in movies. And if anytime a filmmaker goes in, against convention and has the unacceptable target get it, then they're always, some sort of sadist or sicko or something like that. Even though to me they're just telling a movie. Just like I already talked about this before. I don't want to get into it, but one of the things that obviously upset people about Lars von Trier's latest movie, The House of Jack Built, is some of these unacceptable targets are going to get hit in it, and it's not what we're used to seeing. And there were plenty of people that walked out of that movie and were just disgusted and thought, "Oh, there's nothing entertaining or good or redeeming about seeing, the murder of children or blah 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 blah." I'm thinking you're missing the point again, because it's a movie telling a story, and not all stories are pleasant. But
back to Roger Ebert and Siskel also, and Leonard Maltin to some extent. Like, they're not the target audience for films like this, and I don't know why they kept subjecting themselves to watching those films when they know they go into it knowing they're not going to like it. Okay, this is some random slasher. I'm going to go in and watch this. Like, you're not going to like it.
Yeah,
it's not for you.
It's their job.
Yeah, but
in Ebert's case, he had to see every fucking thing that came out.
But I mean, it's stupid. Like, if I'm not going to go review musicals, because I don't like musicals. It's not fair to the film, I guess.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I was going to say, like, if you're going to be a film critic, you have to be more open to all sorts of things. Like, I think I could be a film critic because I can watch pretty much any genre. I like some genres more than others, but I don't immediately dismiss films because of their genre or subject matter. I mean, and I'm just thinking, you would think somebody like Roger Ebert would be more open-minded, because, I mean, like, it can't be that hard because he's seen so much.
But I mean, they're supposed to be somewhat subjective, right? But they're not. I mean, you can go look on YouTube at clip after clip of films from the 80s, horror films from the 80s that they, just shit all over, which, some of them, is justified, but some of those films are actually, pretty good.
Yeah. Although, again, sometimes historical context, like, I think, at least in some of those cases, years later, he might have seen things differently. He did about certain movies, like, I can't say about that. But when you have something like a slasher genre or whatever, like, when you're right in the middle of its emergence, I can, like, and it hasn't been seen before, I can kind of understand by just being appalled by it, maybe, and thinking, is this the direction films are going in now? What the hell is this? Like, nowadays, it's just one more thing in a vast sea of different things. But I don't know. I think sometimes when they saw some of these movies, they were concerned that maybe it was showing some sort, like, it was some sort of indication of a direction that all films were taking or something like that. Like,
maybe like just sleazy.
Sure.
Yeah. I guess you could be right. I don't know. They kept doing it.
I totally agree with his review of, say, in that vein, I Spit on Your Grave. I think everything he says about that, right? Like, that movie, to me, there's no point to any of it.
Oh, sure. I don't care for it either. But
it's just a bunch of shit that happens. Is basically, as far as I can tell. And I guess, rightly or wrongly, I think he lumped that in with some other stuff, even though, again, I don't think that's fair, because there's plenty of movies that might have had elements that were in I Spit on Your Grave, but were completely different from I Spit on Your Grave. And maybe he was lumping them together, because even like a film critic whose job is to watch films and be able, everybody has their own biases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But Disney put something out, and they can shit something out, and it's the best thing in the world, according to Roger Ebert.
Really?
I want my quote on the box.
Yeah, I guess so. I can't really remember. He's been dead for so long now.
Yeah, his website's still churning out reviews somehow.
Oh yeah, they still got a lot on that name.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way with Leonard Maltin. pretty much anything besides, like a horror film, I can, pretty much agree with the guy on a lot of stuff. But
I don't know as much about Leonard Maltin, but I guess he's not much into horror.
no, and I don't even think he watches them anymore. He's the same type guy as, like Ebert. Like he has people on his, staff that review that stuff.
Yeah, but Ebert always interested me because sometimes I could disagree with him so vehemently, and other times like I would feel pretty much exactly the same way as he did about something.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess that's just how it is with people in general.
I know I've said this before in our local newspaper. They would have their reviews right next to where it would tell you what time the movies were showing at the theaters and stuff. So I could like pretty much read his review of him shitting all over a horror movie and say that's the movie I want to see. I can find the time to go see it because I mean I pretty much always disagreed with him on that. So
yeah.
But I mean, he is an entertaining guy. Him and Siskel together, I think, were really a great pair.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why they worked well together.
And somewhat Roper, I guess, too. Never a very big fan of Roper, though.
No, I never liked Roper. I always thought he was pretentious and I don't know. It's really hard, I realize, to not come across as pretentious when you're doing this kind of thing. Even us right now, I realize.
I know.
I'm sure there's certain people who find me pretentious, and that's fine. But I mean, still, I'm entitled to my own opinion on this, and I've always found Roper really insufferable.
If you don't agree with this, go fuck yourself. Did you ever watch The Critic? John Lovett's voiced.
Yeah.
The animation.
Yeah, that was kind of a love letter to Siskel and Ebert.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really remember any episodes, but I did watch the show.
That was a show that like I don't know where it started, but it eventually wound up on Fox. I think it went through like 3 different networks. And I don't know, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. It had some good parody stuff going on in it.
It stinks. That was his catchphrase.
Here's an interesting thing he said about the way he would rate movies with stars. When you ask a friend if Hellboy is any good, you're not asking if it's any good compared to Mystic River. You're asking if it's any good compared to The Punisher. And my answer would be on a scale of 1 to 4. If Superman is 4, then Hellboy is 3 and Punisher is 2. The same way if American Beauty gets 4 stars, then the United States of Leland clocks in about 2. I don't know if that really is the right way to do it, but it goes against what you were saying, because he's trying to say that he does acknowledge different genres and stuff and doesn't judge them all in the same way, but I don't know.
Well, he only has 2 ratings, right? Thumbs up or thumbs down, so
no, he would do stars.
He would do a sideways thumb.
He would do the thumbs up and thumbs down in those quick reviews with Siskel, but yeah. He would write reviews that would do stars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He would give no stars to things he considered artistically inept or morally repugnant. His words.
He's just like a crotchety old man. Like I mean, yeah, it's like you were saying, the emergence of a new genre, the slasher film, and just man, it stinks.
Yeah. Towards the end, he got way too generous, really. So he kind of let up, in fact, to a point where Stephen King was annoyed by it. In August 2004, Stephen King, in a column, criticized what he saw as growing trend of leniency towards films from critics, including Ebert. His main criticism was that films, citing Spider-Man 2 as an example, were constantly given 4-star ratings they did not deserve. In a review of The Manson Family, Ebert gave the film 3 stars for achieving what it set out to do, but admitted that it did not count as a recommendation per se. Yeah, see, all this stuff, it just proves how imperfect it is. Like, it's impossible to really objectively review films. No matter how objective you try to be, everybody has their own views on things, otherwise what's the point? So that's why, like, when we do talk about this sort of stuff, I mean, I always say what I like about it and stuff, but I don't really
Right.
exactly want to review it. I just want to say, here's what's in it, here's the things I liked about it,
Mhm.
and that kind of stuff. Because you can never predict how another person is going to feel about another work, whether it's a movie or a song, whatever like that. I mean, sometimes you think you can, because there's been times where I've like known people that like they like this movie, they like that movie, like, oh, you like those, you're gonna like this. Oh
Right.
no they don't. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of the same way, and I get annoyed by it where sometimes people think they have me figured out. They think because I like this and this, and I must like this. Well, I don't, but that's because people are complicated.
Like you like anime, so you must like Sailor Moon, right?
Yeah, exactly. People that just exactly put all that stuff as if
Mhm.
anime is as I've said, it's not a genre, it's just a medium
Mhm.
and stuff. I mean, I get it. I get to a point where yes, there's lots of anime that's super similar and has a lot of the same traits and all that stuff, but it doesn't cover all anime. But yeah, exactly that kind of thing. You like anime, so you like Sailor Moon, whatever. I don't dislike Sailor Moon, by the way. It was okay for what it was. I never watched much of it.
Yeah, me either. I've always liked more of the sci-fi horror type stuff.
Yeah. It was way too repetitive. It was right up there with like Power Rangers for being super repetitive. Here's the bad guy. Now I go through the weird motions and I stop you with the powers. It gets a little more complicated as we get on, as we add more Sailor Scouts or we add more people, just like as we add more Zords and Power Rangers. But it's always the same sort of thing. Yeah. So, but I
Well,
don't
it's
know.
like yeah, back to reviewing stuff. Like if I ever did review stuff, I would always, if it was something I didn't like, I would always, preface it with, this is not my type of film. I don't generally like this type of film anyway. If that was the case. So, there's stuff I like, there's stuff that I don't like. But generally, I'm open to pretty much anything. Um,
Yeah.
I like all types of films. I like, romance,
Yeah.
comedy. And there are some musicals that I do like quite a bit. But in general, I don't like just a straight musical. It's just not something I'm into.
I don't know if I'm into them, but I can accept them, I guess.
It's like
But I know that I baffle people because, again, I don't like fit in a box because
right,
I don't
well,
know. Like I like Pride and Prejudice every bit as much as I like Predator. Like
hmm
that's not me saying something to make a point. That's absolutely 100% true.
hmm
And I know there's not too many, particularly males in my like age range that would really feel that way or anything like that. But I don't know. I
Did you
like what
ever
I like.
see? Did you ever see Pride and Prejudice and Zombies?
I still haven't seen it. It's been on Netflix forever. I own the book,
Oh, do you? Okay, cool.
which is a lot of fun
Yeah,
because for people that don't know, like it is the actual Pride and Prejudice text.
right.
It has the zombie stuff added in, and they do a pretty good job of like predicting how certain characters would say things and stuff like that. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff too. And I guess there's no ninjas in the movie, which is too bad because ninjas are a big part of the book.
Well, the daughters, the sisters they're like really
Yeah, they're all,
trained.
they're all
I don't
trained.
know.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know. I
know.
don't know in what, but
Yeah, but there's this.
martial arts of some sort.
Yeah, because there's this great part, like in the original Pride and Prejudice, where she visits Lady Catherine de Bourgh, who's the super high up bitch and stuff, and she's all, and there's a part where she's supposed to be saying like, "Well, are you trained in blah blah blah?" The conversation and piano and stuff like that. But in this, she's like asking her about like her martial arts and her weapons training and stuff like that, and she's just like, "How large is your estate dojo?" And she's like, "We have a fairly small dojo." She's like,
That's
"My
funny.
estate dojo is so large with dozens of ninjas." She's like, "How many ninjas does your family command?" She's like, "We have like maybe
Uh,
a dozen ninjas." She's like, "Ha, we have like 12 dozen ninjas," or so, I don't know.
so that's like a measurement stick. Like,
Yeah,
how many ninjas does your dojo have?
yeah. I'll have to
That's
read it
funny.
again because it's a lot of fun.
Oh,
It's
the
too
movie
bad
I
that it.
thought was well done. Thought it was
Yeah.
really well done.
It was a really good example. I remember. I think I showed you too, like how like terribly they do. What's it called? Trailers over here because the British trailer for it was brilliant and the American one was dumb as hell. The British one was so great because the whole point is it plays on what makes it great. It opens up completely straight. It shows the estate. It shows them all sitting down, being frilly in their manners, and then about halfway through, a zombie shows up and it starts showing you the crazy stuff. It's like, here's the hook. Where in the American one, it just starts off like, they're zombies,
of
cut off
course.
their heads, like, ridiculous. So that's been on Netflix forever. So I will watch it because I really enjoyed the book.
So is it the book? It's a straight novel.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is Pride and Prejudice. It is the actual text, but it has other stuff added into it. Although I think others like it's not quite as long. I think they cut out some things too. But I mean, it's full of like again the actual text of Pride and Prejudice. It's not somebody that just made a bunch of stuff up. It's Pride and Prejudice with a bunch of stuff made up added to it, which is really what makes it great.
Yeah, Lily James is the main daughter in it, and she was in Baby Driver. So
Yeah,
the I forget her name in Baby Driver, but the young
Deborah.
lady that he's infatuated with.
Deborah.
And all the sisters are really hot in that movie, so that helps.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I was waiting for that movie for like 3 or 4 years because Natalie Portman was attached, and I think she was still a producer, but she was attached to be the lead. But she's too old anyway, really.
Yeah, now she is.
I mean, this would have been 3 or 4 years ago that it came out.
But not to go off on a completely different tack, but speaking of Natalie Portman, I saw Annihilation that showed up on Netflix.
Oh, right.
It was really good. Really enjoyed it. Obviously had a lot in common with a movie that we covered on here, Stalker. There's a lot in common with that movie. Obviously, very similar setup and stuff, but in a different way. What's funny is, so it's based on a novel of the same name, but the director or whoever it was had read the novel several years ago, and then when he was going to make the movie, he specifically didn't reread the novel and said he just wanted to make a movie based on sort of the way he remembered it and the way it made him feel. And in that case, it makes it completely different from the novel, which is usually the type of approach I'd be like, what the hell are you doing? But it made a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. It had really neat effects and art style and good performances by the actresses and stuff. I didn't like who played her husband. I don't know who that guy is, but he's annoying. Who is that actor?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. But he's another one of those actors who's just as... I mean, this is just me being really bitchy. I'm going to totally admit it. Just even his face bothers me. Like, not quite to the extent that, say, like, Jai Courtney's face bothers me. That's the ultimate. But this guy's face bothered me, too. And I didn't... And, I mean, part of the role is he has to be kind of really, like, blank. And it made it sort of worse, because he's just sort of, like, looking like, duh, throughout the movie. Which drove me nuts, even though I get it. That was kind of the point. But anyway, still, really enjoyable movie.
Is that Oscar Isaac?
Yeah, and I don't dislike him normally. He's really good in another movie we did on here, Most Violent Year.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he seems so different in this movie, which I guess is good. It shows his flexibility as an actor. But yeah, for whatever reason, his face... I don't know. He just looked... I don't know. It's a stupid thing. It has nothing to do with the movie. Don't listen to me, people. But no, I really enjoyed it. I'm probably going to watch it again.
Yeah. This is Alex Garland did that. I'm a big fan of his. He wrote 28 Days Later, and I think he wrote and directed, what is it, Ex Machina?
Oh, yeah. I like both those.
But yeah, he had a lot of problems with the studio on this film because they... obviously it didn't do well. Yeah, I saw it in the theater, but I was probably,
What's weird is I read a lot of, not reviews, but just comments of people saying like how amazing it was in the theater. So I'm like, how come people aren't going?
It doesn't play to a mainstream audience. I'm sure you probably felt the same way.
I guess, in that it's sort of slow and sedate, and I guess it's more... I don't want to say cerebral exactly, but
it's long and you have to think about it, and it's not, explosions and cars.
I mean, there is some actiony stuff, but it's spread out. Yeah, no, I thought it was really great, and I couldn't help but think of Stalker, of course, in watching it because of the
Right.
similarities, and it's a lot like one of H.P. Lovecraft's more well-known stories, The Color Out of Space, except in a more trippy way. Like Color Out of Space is in a sort of more fun way, because in The Color Out of Space, the whole idea is the thing from space that lands has a very negative, terrible impact on everything around it. Now, this you could say is negative too, but it negative in a really beautiful, ethereal type of way. So, um, different from that way. Whereas, I mean, I don't know if there is a movie of The Color Out of Space. There's usually is something of that for Lovecraft, but everything there would look really icky and scary and gross. Whereas this is very beautiful and ethereal, a very ethereal quality to it that I liked it a lot. I mean, the place is called The Shimmer, so it makes sense. And I love how it all culminates in a lighthouse. How come a lighthouse is always like where the most? It's usually if you're going to do something that's really based on, I don't know, spirituality or mystery or whimsy, like a lighthouse is always like the pivotal point. I wish I could come up with other examples, but I know there are.
Symbolic, I guess. I don't know.
I guess so. But it just made perfect sense that like everything's going to end. They're making their way to the lighthouse. Everything ends in the lighthouse. There's a bit in, even though I was disappointed by it, in what's it called? Shutter Island, where everything comes to a head in the lighthouse. That's where the reveal happens. It's all in the lighthouse on Shutter Island. There's a few other things like that. I don't know.
I was kind of mixed on that one.
I wasn't happy at all because I didn't like the twist. I wanted it all to be true, and it wasn't.
Was that Nolan?
That's a good question. I don't know. It might. Oh, I think it was. No, the other guy that uses DiCaprio.
Scorsese.
I think it's Scorsese.
Yeah.
It's a really well done movie and it's entertaining and everything, but I was just unhappy with the revelation. I didn't like, oh, it's all in his head, he's crazy. I wanted it to be real. I wanted him to be an actual marshal. I wanted there to be a weird, mystery conspiracy. But instead, it's like, no, he's just crazy and we're humoring him. I didn't like that.
Yeah, I wasn't.
I don't know. I love lighthouses. Maybe it's just because I live on the East Coast and lighthouses are just sort of a part of growing up here and stuff. I visited them.
They're always a point of interest in films.
Yeah.
I can't think of another example, but I know it's been in multiple.
Well, usually if you're going to have like some like dramatic thing happen, the lighthouse is like the perfect place for it. And they do it again in that.
But yeah, back to Annihilation. I know he didn't have final cut on it, so they were gonna the studio was gonna take that and cut it to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the producers, one of the executive producers, stopped him and said, you have to leave it how it is, and that's what they're blaming on it, not doing well in the theaters. It's just I don't know. It's not a movie that's going to make a lot of money. I mean, I could have told him that.
It must have cost a lot of money.
Yeah, it looks very nice. Yeah.
Too bad. What's weird is outside of North America, or it only got a theatrical release in North America and China. Everywhere else, it was instantly released on Netflix.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I think that's shows how much faith they had in it, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, it finally showed up on mine about a week or so ago, and I watched it almost immediately because I was really interested in it. I was pretty happy with it. I liked it quite a bit.
It's different, that's for sure. If you're tired of the same old thing, check it out. And Natalie Portman's usually good in whatever she does.
Yeah, I've always liked her. Not just because she's pretty. She's pretty, of course. But she can give good performances.
Mm-hmm.
I probably won't watch it again, and I haven't seen it in years because it's painful. But, I mean, she's really good in Closer.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
That's a hard movie to watch for me because it's just too raw and emotional.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of good performances by it. It might be like one of the only times I've been okay with what's her name?
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts. Like, she's fine in that movie. I don't have any complaints about her. And usually if there's a movie with Julia Roberts in it, she's my complaint. But I'm fine with her in that movie. I don't know if she was necessarily the best person for the role. I probably would have liked somebody more, but I can't say she dragged the movie down or anything. She was fine.
Usually she does drag the movie down.
You think in that one?
No. I said usually.
Oh, usually. Well,
Not in that one.
Usually for me, for sure. Anyway, that's how I feel.
I mean, it's such an ensemble that she doesn't get as much screen time as usual.
Yeah.
But
or Clive Owen. Clive Owen was like a big deal in the mid 2000s, and then he dropped off the face of the earth.
What happened with that?
There are even people talking about him being James Bond before Daniel Craig. I know people hate Daniel Craig, but I just don't think I would have liked Clive Owen as Bond. It's just not him.
I know everyone's trying to get was it Idris Elba to be Bond now?
He's too old.
He's too old, yeah.
There's nothing. I don't care that he's black. That's fine. If they want to do a black Bond, that's fine. The only thing I stipulate for Bond is that he's British. I don't care if he's British and black. That's fine. That's still British. I'm fine with that. And obviously, Bond has to at least be, a certain physical stature. Like, he's not a huge guy or anything like that, but he can't be. Because that's what people that really wanted to pick on Craig were saying, he's too short because Craig's 5'11". I'm like, 5'11's no big deal. He is. That does make him the shortest Bond. But 5'11
really?
not,
wow.
But 5'11's not short, people.
I wouldn't think so.
It's certainly not noticeable. I mean, they talk about how short he is, but the tallest Bond was, I think, Lazenby, and he was only in one movie. He was 6'2.5".
What are we talking? 3 inches? Come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every Bond has been within that 3-inch thing. It's not like Bond was ever played by somebody who's like 6'5" or taller. But people wanted to pick apart Craig, and I get it. I get why people don't like Craig. I'm fine with him. I don't think he's great or anything like that. But we're not going to get into a Bond thing again, as I often do. But yeah, Idris Elba is a great actor, and I like him in a lot of stuff. But he's too old for Bond.
Yeah.
You need to start, if you're going to be Bond, you need to start them in their late 30s or like 40. That way you can get 3 or 4 movies out of them. Because it's okay for Bond to be in his late 40s for like one movie. But don't start them in their late 40s or their 50s. Because Idris Elba is like 48 now.
I was going to say, he's got to be at least 50.
Yeah. So, no.
I first saw him in, the first time I noticed him was in The Wire. And I didn't realize he was British because he did a really good.
Yeah, he does.
Really good American accent.
I'm actually thinking of finally rewatching that again because I only got so far and I never saw the later seasons.
You stopped at what, 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say give it a watch.
A lot of people say like 3 is a lot better than 2. And I didn't stop because I was disappointed. It was just one of those things where I just kind of stopped. Like I wasn't like, oh, this isn't good anymore. I just, things happen. But I've had access to them for a while now, so I'll get back to that.
Yep, 70. He's born in 72, so you're about right. 47, 48.
Yeah, just too early for him to start as Bond, because that means he wouldn't even start until he was around 50.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the other thing I was thinking about The Brood was back in 2009 there was going to be a remake, but it did not come to fruition. Just as well, remakes are a complicated subject and stuff like that. I mean, most of the time I don't like them. Every once in a while I'm open to the idea of one, and every once in a while I think there's a pretty good one. Cronenberg just doesn't seem like the type of guy whose work should ever be remade. I don't think any of his stuff should be remade.
I don't know. He may disagree with you because, he did do The Fly.
Which was a remake in itself. I get it.
But
I guess you could remake The Fly again, I guess. But, I mean, as far as the stuff like he wrote himself, I mean, I know he wrote The Fly, but you know what I mean? The stuff that just, like, came from him and him alone. Like, I don't, like, yeah, okay, if you want to remake The Dead Zone or whatever, knock yourself out. But, don't remake Naked Lunch.
Well, I mean, Naked Lunch wasn't his either.
It really is. As much as it's based on Burroughs' work, it's still a lot of his stuff too.
It definitely has his signature all over it, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's one thing that I wish I had talked about a little bit more when we did our other thing. When we did why do I keep forgetting? how to say Videodrome is how much Burroughs' work, even back then, would creep its way into Cronenberg's stuff. Not so much here in The Brood, but in other things. As we say, well, especially a lot about talking about people, their desires and people doing stuff that goes against their best interests and stuff like that. Because that was a lot of what was going on with Burroughs, about fighting against his various addictions and stuff like that, and also giving into his addictions, which seemed to work out pretty well for him too, from a writer's standpoint. Yeah, The Brood is yet another one that has a Criterion Collection edition. Most of Cronenberg's works do. Yeah. It's not one that I would probably pick up anytime soon. I like it, and I get what he's doing with it and stuff, but this is still, to me, it's still before he really hits his stride with Videodrome. Once he gets to Videodrome, I think he's just on a crazy run of excellence. But I do think the movies running up to it are still good movies, and I like them.
I would like to see a Blu-ray. Well, for one, there's 0 special features on this. This is just the old MGM DVD, and 0 special features. And it's, of course, I'd love to see an HD transfer of that final reveal and of, some of the kill scenes, because I think they would look really good. It was very dark, some of the scenes in this film, I was noticing.
Yeah.
It would be nice to see that cleaned up a little bit.
I think so. Oh, I remember now. So this film has the usual music guy who did pretty much all the music in or all his films. What the hell is his name?
Howard Shore.
Yes, Howard Shore. And I really like the music. And there are scenes in it. This just dawned on me because it's the first time I watched it. There are several scenes where the music sounds, and remember, this predates it by a year, almost exactly the same as the first Friday the 13th.
Really?
There's like 3 or 4 scenes that sound just like Friday the 13th. And I'm thinking, this is before Friday the 13th. Yeah, there's a lot of that like really high like strings stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like the soundtrack from that thing. Because at first you're like, that sounds like your traditional slasher. And then you're thinking, this predates the traditional slasher.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly Friday the 13th. But yeah, there's at least a couple of scenes where the music sounds exactly, at least to me, like Friday the 13th, the original one. Like when things are going crazy and the shit's hitting the fan.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Howard Shore.
Is that who he used for most of his films?
Yeah, almost all of them.
Really? I didn't realize that.
Let's take a look here just to be super sure. So this is the first time they were together, but he did Scanners, Videodrome, The Fly, Dead Ringers, Naked Lunch. What else? M. Butterfly. Crash.
Yeah.
So he did like all of them.
I want to do Crash. Isn't that the one that you hate?
That's the one I hate.
Let's do Crash on your next week.
That's the one where I turn into Roger Ebert and I'm like, who wants to see that filth?
Yeah, I want to see it again. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's possible. But yeah, he did all of them. He did Eastern Provinces.
Wow.
Spider.
That's great. Spider's a good one.
Existence. Yeah, he did like all of them. A History of Violence.
I'll be honest with you. I would like to cover all of those films on here at some point.
Cosmopolis. So yes, he did like all of them. I think there's only like one he didn't do, and that is The Dead Zone.
The studio probably had somebody they wanted to use.
He did all the others. And he did lots of other music too. Probably the weirdest one that he did, like in the context of his career, is that he's the guy that did the music of
what
now?
Oh,
never mind. Sorry, never mind. That's not weird. Oh. Sorry, he's the guy that did all the Hobbit movies and the Lord of the Rings. So all the Lord of the Rings soundtrack is him. So that's what everybody would probably know him for. The great, memorable, at least Lord of the Rings. I don't know about much the Hobbit, but Lord of the Rings. Really great soundtrack with some really moving, great, memorable songs. And I mean, I love that. I love those movies, and I do love the music. But yeah, to me, he'll always stand out as the Cronenberg guy.
The guy that scored The Brood.
Exactly. Oh, he did lots of other cool movies. Not that I really remember the music for them, like Single White Female, Ed Wood, Seven, Striptease.
Wow. Lots
He
of
got Copland, The Score, The Cell, Panic Room. Oh, yeah, so a guy that's been around.
those are all pretty good movies, with the exception of Striptease.
I never knew it was him that did. Oh, he did some other crappy movies. I just didn't name them. But yeah, I never. I don't know how I never knew that he was the guy that did the Lord of the Rings stuff. That's kind of cool that the Canadian did the Lord of the Rings music. I did not know that.
Didn't either. I know the name. I definitely recognize the
Okay.
name from doing a lot of stuff. But
Oh yeah, like you saw him. He did Big, The Silence of the Lambs. Yes, and big, huge movies. He's right up there with a lot of the other names.
Silence of the Lambs too, huh? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good score on that one too.
Speaking of Scorsese, Gangs of New York, High Fidelity, which is one we did on here. Although again, there's not too much original soundtrack on that movie. Most of that movie's the rock and pop songs. He did some weird. The Game.
That's a good movie.
Isn't that weird that I've never seen that movie?
Yeah, I don't know if you'd like it or not.
I know. That's one of the ones that Orc always flips around on me when I get on him for not seeing movies. He's like, "Well, you haven't seen The Game." I'm like, "So."
Who
Although
directed that?
who directed The Game? That's a good question. Let's see. That's Fincher.
Fincher. Okay.
And I am a fan of Fincher. I like most of his movies. And I also knew that like the Game for a long time has had a Criterion release, which usually means quality, although not always. One of my problems is Michael Douglas, who I really don't like.
Really?
That's a big problem right there. And the other thing is, I kind of know that it really is just a game.
So you know the twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Don't watch it then.
I don't even remember how I know that. It's just one of those things. I've known it so long, I don't know how I knew. Like I don't.
That was,
Nobody.
yeah, that was really cool. The reveal of that.
I guess so. I mean, maybe it's done in such a way that I would like it because I haven't seen it. Because, for instance, like a lot of people, when they're naming slashers they'll mention like April Fool's Day or whatever. That's what it's called, right? April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
And I hate that movie, and I can't stand that it's all fake. Like a lot of people like that stands out as a good one. I'm like, no, it's ruined. I can't stand that it's all made up. I hate it.
Spoiler alert for April Fool's Day.
Yeah, well, people should figure it out by just by the title. But anyway, I cannot take that movie seriously. I'm just like, nope, it's just a big fake out.
Mm-hmm.
But I have seen it too.
It's trying something different. I can respect it for that.
Although there is one thing that really makes me want to see that really makes me interested in seeing The Game. It's right here too. I have it here. It says in the Criterion Edition film notes, the director was referred to as incorporating elements of the writings taken from Franz Kafka, stating echoes of Franz Kafka are hard to miss. Blah blah blah. Like Joseph K. in The Trial. Blah. Anyway, I'm a huge Kafka freak, so I love stuff that's Kafka-esque. In fact, speaking of Kafka, Cronenberg is often called like the Kafka of film. So there you go, because he's so great at bleak weirdness. Now Kafka never got as weird as Cronenberg, but he did the bleak thing right up. Love Kafka.
Well, I mean, you like Fincher, so it may be worth it just to watch it.
Yeah, so I guess it's another one that I'll have to eventually get around to seeing.
It's Sean Penn, right?
Yeah, and I'm fine with Sean Penn. Well, I mean, as an actor, as a human being, he leaves something to be desired. he's a preachy, know-it-all douche, but
yeah, he's a pretty good actor, though.
Yeah, he's given lots of good performances. I really like. I already mentioned it, Mystic River, which Robert Ebert. I like Mystic River a lot. It's a good show.
It's Clint Eastwood, right?
Yeah, he's the one who directed that. I've never really considered myself an Eastwood fan, but he has directed a few movies I like. The one I really like is Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, which is one of my favorite books.
Yeah, I like a lot of his stuff. I haven't seen a lot of his stuff probably in the past decade, but um,
All I know is that Blood Work is like the most boring thing you'll ever see, so don't
yeah,
watch that.
I'm saying it's yeah.
I mean,
I
so,
don't think he directed that one though.
oh, didn't he? I always
Uh,
associate him with it.
Maybe he did. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Huh.
I know he actually starred in it too. So, but I guess he starred in a lot of the films he was in or he directed.
Yeah. It's interesting in talking about the inherent problems with reviewing and the nature of it and stuff like that. It makes me think of Cronenberg's own sort of relationship with censors,
Mm-hmm.
particularly because he had to deal with the Canadian Film Review Board early in his career. They were kept saying, "You can't do this, you can't do that," stuff like that. I like what he always says. Censors tend to do what only psychotics do. They confuse reality with illusion, which is really to the point what we were saying when we were making fun of the people, talking about the Halloween or whatever being offensive to people, mental health, adding to the negative stigma and stuff like that. Same thing with, like, I saw, like, on Twitter a few days ago, like, some, stupid biased, goes without saying, Fox News article that was trying to skewer Jamie Lee Curtis because they were
Right.
saying she's anti, she's for gun control and blah, blah, blah. But here she is using guns in this movie. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? Like, I don't like guns in real life either. I'm all for gun control. The lack of gun control, even in Canada, horrifies me. I wish we had way better gun control. I'm not interested in owning guns. Gun nuts make me uncomfortable. But I fucking love guns in movies. If I was an actor, I would totally be in movies shooting guns. I'd
Yeah,
be in
it's
a.
just
I love John Woo, and I love violent video games and shooting. So I mean, again, there's a difference between reality and non-reality and stuff. So, but people are stupid.
yeah, it's just selling ad revenue. It's you can't believe what you read any of that media. Uh, yeah, yeah. I saw that. I mean, Sigourney Weaver is the same way. She was, very, very anti-gun. And was it you and
Yeah,
I
but
were
she
talking
was to the
about?
point where she
Yeah.
actually complained about using it in movies,
Mm-hmm.
though, right? Where, like, in one of the Alien movies, she's like, "Well, I don't want to be run." She didn't like that image before of
Mm-hmm.
Ripley running around with a gun. So with Sigourney Weaver, you can at least, she's an acceptable target for it because she brought it into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But so I think she's just as dumb as the other people. I'm just like, what I believe politically and blah 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 or whatever. It doesn't have anything to do with a role I'm playing in a movie. That's the point. I'm an actor playing a role. If the role calls for my character to be like a crazy guy that loves guns, then that's the role. It doesn't mean I, the real person, am. Just, I mean,
Well,
it's just so stupid. It's like people that play murderers. Do they endorse
right.
murder? Like, what the fuck, people?
That's the world we live in. People are trying to shoehorn other political topics in with something that has nothing to do with. It's just,
Yeah. Especially if there's like a way to take a shot at somebody, right? Like, I don't like this person. Oh,
mm-hmm.
look, you did this thing, so now I can criticize you for it. It's
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
everybody's looking for ammunition so they can slam each other, and that's the thing that bothers me the most about, like, whenever people like have some sort of argument or disagreement or whatever, it's all whataboutism. It's never about the issue. It's not like, here's the topic, you're on this side of it, I'm on this side of it,
Mm-hmm.
we disagree, let's get into it. It's always, well, you say this. Well, what about that? I hate
Mm-hmm.
people that do that. That has nothing to do with fucking anything. Don't change the subject. Don't do what about.
Right, right. That's why I hate to talk politics with people for the most
It takes,
part.
yeah, takes them about
Because
10 seconds.
it jumps all over the place. It's like
Yeah.
what? Well, okay, so then you like to kill babies, huh?
Yeah, exactly. People always make those
Yeah.
jumps. Yeah. I
So
mean, it's not as bad here. Our politics are a lot quieter than yours. People don't really fight as much openly. Uh,
yeah, I mean, social media has really
politics
opened
here.
up a whole nother outlet for people to. Not
Yeah.
only are you hidden behind your curtain of your computer, you're not actually talking to someone face to face, but
Oh, yeah.
you can really get
Yeah.
on your soapbox and spew
It's
whatever
just like,
insanity you want.
the U.S. brings it on itself in some ways, though. Like, for instance, that whole thing about, like, the Kavanaugh thing, right? About how he was going to be the judge. Like, that was all,
Mm-hmm.
like, regardless of, that issue coming up, even if that issue didn't come up, that's all televised anyway. That's
Mm-hmm.
how they do things. We don't televise that. it's really private here. It's done behind closed doors. Yeah, like people in the Supreme Court here are kind of like horrified that their poor American counterparts have to go through that and have to be scrutinized in that way. But that's just sort of that's just a regular thing in the U.S.
Well, I don't think normally people would have watched it, but you
know, I guess not. I don't know.
Hell, we have a whole channel. Well, we used to have a channel called Court TV that was nothing but trials all the time.
Yeah.
Like we got to watch trials on television.
When I was 11, I watched a whole bunch of the OJ trial.
Yeah.
Not too many people can say that, but I did. But again, yeah, you can't. No cameras in Canadian courtrooms.
The OJ trial. See, I was in the 9th grade, so anyway, that doesn't matter. But we, we had the little televisions in our classroom that we basically never used. But this was a time everyone stopped what they were doing to hear the OJ verdict. You know, it was like, where were you when you found out that OJ was not guilty? Where were you when Kennedy?
I was too young. I was too young to care. Surrounded by people who were too young to care, but I was a little different. So I did care. I was interested in it. Not super interested, but So I did watch a little bit about it and stuff like that.
I didn't really care either.
But it's not like something. It's not like something I could talk to my friends about. They weren't going to know. They'd be like, "What?"
But
he's on. Like they not like what? Like they would know because that was like the most. That's like the most publicized thing in the history of anything. Yeah. Like everybody knew because everything was jokes. Everything was an OJ joke or reference.
Oh man! Oh gosh! Like you look back at like whatever media from that period of time, it's loaded. Like it's like Judge Ito and stuff. Like the fuck is Judge Ito? Yeah. It's like there was somebody had a bunch of dancing Itos on their.
Yeah, I remember.
Conan or.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And it's just
talk about running something into the ground. But again, I get it because this isn't just the U.S. This is the world. If you want something to like explode in the public eye, it's called celebrity plus big crime.
Yeah, there you go.
Put those together, and nothing beats it.
From minute one, dude was in his Bronco or his friend's Bronco. Instantly, everyone's watching that. Like, oh shit, OJ's running from the cops.
Yeah, that actually caused like the Bronco to sell a lot better for the next few years. That caused a big spike in sales. I don't know why. Like, what does that even mean? Like, it's not like OJ showed how great the car was by outdistancing the cops. It was like it wasn't even a real chase. It was like a slow speed chase where they could have caught him, but they were hanging back because he was threatening to shoot himself or something. So they were hanging back. So it wasn't like it was a high speed chase where he was zipping and zooming all over the place. Who was he driving with? Al Collins or somebody?
Yeah, one of his teammates or something. Some other football player person.
Yeah, and he's like, I got OJ here. He's got a gun to his head. Don't do it, OJ.
And Kato Kalin, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, just some dude living in his basement. Just some, street urchin.
We talk about the crazy stuff that happens now, and maybe it is the craziest, but it doesn't mean other stuff didn't happen. The 90s, we had OJ, and then we had, like, Monica Lewinsky a couple years later.
Yeah, and Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya.
Yeah.
Did you see that film?
Yeah, I thought it was okay, but I really don't like how they... To me, she's super guilty. Like, she's not some innocent pawn that didn't know anything. To me, she totally knew what was going on, and she was fine with it. That's not just a gut feeling from nothing. That's from, seeing all sorts of stuff on it in documentaries. I feel like the movie is just trying to make it look like, oh, she's just a victim.
Yeah.
And she didn't know, and poor girl. Like, no, I don't feel much sympathy for her.
Yeah. And
I just still like the movie because it does shine a light on what an interesting figure she was, and that she came from, such a way different background from the average figure skater, and how she was different. And she was a real pioneer. She was the first woman to land quads. Women weren't even attempting those when she did it, and now it's like a standard thing. So she had a lot more power than a lot of those skaters and stuff too. And it also shows like how the history of the judging works too, because because the judging in figure skating always works this way. It goes from one period to another. One where the artistic stuff is super important, and then one where the technical stuff is super important. And she came in when artistic was more important, so they didn't care about her. They're like, we don't care that you can do amazing quads. You're not artistic enough. And then a few years later, they swing the other way. That's one of the problems with being a figure skater. Like if you're one or the other, you better hope that you're in vogue at the time. Because plenty of people, I think, were screwed out of medals that way. Because that just wasn't the thing at the time. It's just like, yeah, well, it's good that you can do that, but we're not really into that right now. So we're gonna give the medal to this person.
Well, people learned that they could cry, like right? They could cry to the judges, and they would give them points for that. Well, what did her shoelace or her lace broke?
The lace broke. I saw that live as it happened. I remember that clearly. I was watching it. Speaking of 94, I was watching the Olympics and I saw that happen. I saw her go over and cry.
Isn't that pathetic, though? Like, they don't care.
Yeah, I know. No, they don't. It's the fucking Olympics. You don't get do-overs in the Olympics. It's the biggest stage in the world. But what kind of does get lost in that is like everybody talking about like Nancy Kerrigan being so brave and coming back, and how what's her name shouldn't even been allowed to. It's like nobody was going to beat Oksana Viol anyway.
Right.
She was like way up here. Nobody was even closer. Like Kerrigan got silver, yay, that's good and that's great. But she was like way below her. Viol just kicked everybody's ass. But yeah, that was something I was more into when I was younger. Like now I don't really know figure skaters and stuff, but that was something I watched and followed a bit more back then. Because Canadians always had some pretty good people in it. People like Elvis Stoico never got the gold. But.
I saw the Canadian what is it when is the duo whenever there's a male and a female together. That was a really good Canadians this past Winter Olympics.
Yeah, I can't remember their names, but I know who you mean. They're actually a real couple too, which is rare. Usually they're not, but they're an actual couple.
Yeah, they were who I wanted to win, but I think they got beat out by the damn. The Japanese are really good now.
Yeah, the Japanese have gotten as good as the Chinese.
I mean, they finished gold and silver, I think.
Yeah, no, they've really come on past years because it used to always be like Canada, the U.S., China,
right?
Maybe Russia or Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, it was like no contest as far as the males go.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting crazy all over the place now. But as we said, going to this, this is a fairly short. It's only like a 90-minute movie. There's not, even though it's interesting subject matter, still there's not like a lot of scenes and stuff to analyze. Although, I mean, it's okay performances, but none of these actors are really noteworthy actors. This is before Cronenberg got to get his hands on really, upper tier actors. But not that any of the acting suffers for the movie. The movie has sort of a B movie quality feel to it, but I don't mind. I like it very much anyway. And I think the music does elevate it a little bit. Although...
Yeah, I'd say slightly a little higher than a B, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure. I mean, certainly has better production values.
Just because it's the subject matter and the 70s feel kind of makes it feel like a B movie, I think.
I think that's actually true. Yeah, that's a good point. It has a real 70s feel and stuff. Those buildings and stuff. Has a lot in common with Rabid in that Rabid takes place in and around sort of a medical complex. This one does too. And there's just lots of those, that's another thing you see in a lot of Cronenberg's is medical places or big places with long hallways and sterilized environments and fluorescent lights and stuff. Those usually loom large in a Cronenberg film. But his first one, Shivers. I just love how 70s Shivers is, showing off this fancy apartment complex or whatever. And everything's so 70s, all the carpet and the paneling and everything. It's awesome.
I know Shivers was hard to find when I really got into Cronenberg. Maybe the early 2000s. Like I think I had a bootleg copy of it for the longest time before I could actually find it.
It's another one, like, I had access to all his movies, like, from Video Difference, and Shivers is one of the ones Ryan and I rented.
Oh, really?
Many years ago we watched Shivers.
What's the alternate title?
Oh shit, that's right. It does have an alternate title.
Shivers or
Hold on,
it's
I'll
like
find it.
3 or 4 words long. It's like it comes from within or something like that.
Oh, is it? I can't remember. Hold on, I'll find out. Shiver. Orgy of the Blood Parasites?
Oh wow, no, that's not what I was thinking of.
Here we got Orgy of the Blood Parasites, The Parasite Murders, They Came From Within,
That's it.
and Frisons.
Wow, I think I actually may have said that. Something like that. They came from within. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is a really cool cover that I don't think I've seen before, with like a woman with her head out of the bathtub. I don't think I've seen that before. Being terrified is just the beginning. See, that's a good tagline.
Sure.
Way better than this stupid one. When they get your hands on you or whatever, you're going to wish that you were ... dead, or no, better off.
That's stupid.
Dead. I don't know. Something really lame.
I could probably write a better tagline in like 5 minutes.
I think so. The Brood. I think. What else to come up on it? The body horror.
I've got the one sheet of this, and it's really not a very good poster. It basically looks like a big trash bag.
Yeah, with the hands on it.
Yeah, it's really not.
It's really stupid. That's the one I posted on Twitter when I announced it, because I just sort of clicked the first thing I found.
Right.
And I was just like, what the hell does this even mean? Like, it's got the bad tagline and, like the hands. If they get their hands on you, you're better off dead. If they get their hands on you, the Brood do kill people, I guess, but they have little munchkin hands.
They're like 6-year-old children.
Okay, here's something that bothers me, and the Brood makes me think of this. This is something within the Brood. So, like last year, there was a Family Guy episode where Peter and his friends randomly start a podcast where they just talk about random shit. And Peter says, okay, here's the question for you. How many fourth graders do you think you could take on? Like, realistically, like if wave after wave of them were coming at you, how many do you think you could kill? Right? Well, my friends and I came up with that question a decade before that.
Yeah.
Way before that, we used to talk about it. Then sometimes when new people would come into our group, it would be like the first thing we asked them, and we could tell they were cool by how they answered.
Fourth graders were pretty good size. I don't know, man.
I don't think we said fourth graders actually, though. We had younger, like maybe they were 5 or 6.
I think I could handle. Oh God, a lot of kids that age.
Oh yeah, I think dozens of them before you go down. Like the point is, there, at least in our hypothetical, like there's an endless wave. They're not going to stop coming. You're eventually going to go down.
Right.
But the idea is like, how many do you think you could take out before you went? Yeah, like, and again, it has to depend upon where we were. I remember being like in a food court, and one of my friends was like, "This would be a good place to hold off the kids. Like you could stand on the tables and kick them in the face and all this stuff." It's like, yeah.
So let's set it up. Okay, let's say they're 6 years old. It's boys and girls.
Yeah, boys and girls.
And what type of wave are we talking about? Like how fast are they coming?
I'd say you probably get at least like groups of like 30.
30 at a time?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
So like everywhere you turn,
definitely taking it up a notch.
They're there, right? Like, so if you manage to sprint away from them, there's still a massive group chasing you. And the idea is you can't really get away with them anyway. Only weapons, like not like weapons like swords or knives, but I mean, if there's something around that they could pick up or you could pick up, like, yeah, like I said, I like the food court thing because again, you can stand on tables, kick them in the face. You could pick up like the trash cans and throw them at them, stuff like that. So anyway, I just wanted to make it clear, people, that way before Family Guy talked about it, we used to seriously talk about it, and I remember that's how we knew if people were cool or not, because we might ask them that, and they'd be like, "What?" And be like, "Oh, you suck." But other people, I remember our friend, one of our friends, Edison, we asked him that, like, it was funny too, because like he wasn't even like, I think he was just walking by, and somebody threw the question at him, and he just stopped and said, "I don't know, 100?" And we were like, yeah, you get it. Something like that. But yeah, it's been years since I thought about it. But then as soon as I saw it on that episode, I was like, "You fuckers!" That was
Yeah.
our question. And again, I know probably we weren't the first people to think of it either, but it was a legitimate thing that we were even sort of like known to talk about a lot.
So guys,
This was back in my second year of university.
post your answers down below. How
Yeah.
many
How many
children do
think
you
you
think
could
you
take?
can
How many
handle?
you could take out?
I don't know, 30 at a time. That's more than I was thinking. I was thinking like they would slowly come out, like every 2 seconds there would be another one. But you're
No.
talking
The
about
idea is
like
definitely like you always have a big group around you,
that's
like a big group. So even like when it's easy to like kick and punch and mow others down, the problem is there's other ones that can grab onto you and slow you down and
well
stuff. So it's a real
that's how they're
problem.
going to get you. They're going to just the sheer weight.
Yeah. So what you have to do is keep moving.
Yeah.
You need to like knock a bunch down, move back, and find a defensible position. Now, in the said Family Guy episode, what Peter says is he thinks he could get into a bathroom stall and then just kick them, and that way they come in. That way they come in through a narrow funnel,
That's
and then he just kicks them as they come in. And
but
that's
they could come in under the door and under the
I
walls.
mean that's a good point, the narrow funnel, but also I think it's a flaw because there's no way out.
Right.
You got your back to the wall.
Once you're overloaded, it's over.
So no, I would need to be somewhere out in the open, constantly moving, until obviously to a point where I'm too tired. Because I really think it's the fatigue. The fatigue is what would take me down. Because
Yeah.
for like at least the first few minutes, I can hit them pretty hard with some good shots that would easily hurt a child that young and small, right? And they're short too, right? So it's you don't even have to be a really good kicker to kick one right in the face. You don't need Taekwondo skills or something to kick them right in the face. They're like maybe 4 feet tall. Right?
And they're children, so if they get hurt a little bit, they're going to go away.
At least now I don't know how it goes in Family Guy, but in ours we didn't actually have that. In ours, they're not zombies. They're not zombies. They're still children. But the idea of I guess to reconcile the fact that they're coming at you in murderous waves would also suggest that they'd have to be legitimately injured to go down. Like it couldn't just be a little hurt and then cry and give up the way a kid would.
Okay.
Like there's something in them where they really want you dead. So even if you bloody one's nose, that won't necessarily incapacitate him because the idea is something I don't know, virus something. They're coming right at you and they want you dead. So you can't be just like, oh well, I hurt this one a little, so he'll give up like a kid in real life would. Like to this in this situation, they're a little different than real life because they're very very serious about killing you to the point where they'll put up with pain. So you have to like really seriously injure them.
It's really a good question. If you could like you were saying, take out some and then get somewhere and maybe rest for a little bit. Get somewhere where you're not in immediate danger at all times.
Yeah. See, you'd have to
That's the only way you'd be able to do it.
You have to stick and move.
Otherwise, it would be a stamina thing.
Yeah, and the thing is, stamina is eventually going to, fail you. Eventually,
Yeah.
you're just not going to have force behind your blows. And if one grabs you, or if they're grabbing you, you won't be able to shake them off. Because the first time they grab you, you can shake them off. But eventually, your limbs are gonna get heavy, and when they grab you, you're not gonna be able to shake them off, and then they'll pile on you, and that'll be the end of you.
If Conor McGregor was going to answer that question, what do you think he would say?
He would just say there's no way he'd ever go down.
He would never go down.
Infinity. He would just kill Infinity. I want to hear Conor McGregor saying how he would just kill Infinity kids.
I would love to hear it.
What if they were Russian kids, Connor?
All of them. All of them. If they were Russian kids, one, I would tap out.
Exactly. Using their sambo.
Mm-hmm.
All Russian children are taught sambo from an early age. Sometimes by Putin himself.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to look. There was a review I did a while back that it was about that. It was a movie about they're on this island where these kids go crazy and.
Oh really?
And it was actually a remake of a movie from the 70s about the same thing, but let's see if I can find the name of it. And I posed that question. I was like, I wouldn't have a problem. I mean, if the kids go crazy, the whole thing in the movie is this woman like couldn't hurt the kids, right?
Yeah, right.
It's like I feel like I wouldn't have a problem doing that.
No, once somebody has like murderous intent, it
Right.
doesn't matter what they are. I mean, I guess I understand it maybe if there's somebody you like know, because
Right.
then you'd be like, "What's wrong with you? Can I get
Right.
through to you?" But I
Right.
mean, if it's just like some random, even if it's a kid, you just be like, "Okay, I don't know what's going on here, but they're trying to kill me." You know.
And these are brown kids, so nobody would care anyway, right? So
Oh,
obviously that was a joke.
yeah, I know.
Um, this
See,
is
that's the
coming out
other
of
problem with the thing I said about like acceptable targets, right? Because let's say you have a video game and you kill people in the video game, you're shooting everybody. But if you suddenly make everybody like a certain color and you do it, then it's like the worst like murder simulator ever. Even though it's okay if you're just killing a bunch of white people.
yeah.
Killing a bunch of white people is fine because you know who else are white? Nazis. But it's like this, we're not killing Nazis in this thing. They're just white people. But I don't know. But
This
I
was
mean, at least sometimes they've had the guts. Well, not the guts exactly, but I mean, I think Resident Evil 5 might be the worst Resident Evil of the core series. But at least, to be fair, you're in Africa, so you're a white person killing black people, which I get looks bad, but for the purposes of the thing, you're in Africa and you're fighting the infected
right.
hordes. The infected hordes here are in Africa, so they're black and stuff. So I remember there was some minor outcry, not exactly outcry, but people saying how they were uncomfortable or something. I'm thinking, well, you're in Africa. That's just how it
Right.
goes. Speaking of James Bond, it's like how the first one that Roger Moore did, Live and Let Die, is down in like Jamaica or something like that. So the movie amounts to James Bond versus the black people. But I mean, it's not a race thing; it's a location thing.
Right. Well, it's realistic, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there are black people in Jamaica.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember there was a few games like that around the same period of time that were I think, set in the Middle East. And then, so you were basically killing Middle Eastern people the whole time.
Right. And at the same time, when I talk about acceptable targets, like I'm fine with the fact that, for instance, in like the Grand Theft Auto games, there aren't kids. I don't think yes, they should put kids in there so you can run them over with your car or blow them up. No, it's fine. Like I get it. It's not tasteful to have kids in that world. That is fine. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I hate how like in movies where there are kids or whatever, they'll go out of their way to avoid it when it's happening to everybody else, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not gonna harp on it too long. But yeah, as far as like a video game or something, it's like I'm not like, wow, I really wish they could insert nuns into this game or something. That way I could kill nuns. But I don't know.
Yeah, someone's out there like, let's go find the darkies.
Well, that's the
And
thing. Like,
they're like
there's
trying to
there's
go.
there's all sorts of like people can mod games now, right? So like, there's
Right.
people out there like doing probably like horrifically like racist mods and stuff.
Absolutely.
It's like, yeah, now you can kill, like you said, kill all the darkies. Like everybody's black now, or everybody's like, I don't know, that. I'm sure there's all sorts of like super offensive mods out there of various games that
I've seen
allow you
crazy
to.
mods for Grand Theft Auto 5, whatever the last one was.
Yeah, 5.
Um,
Still haven't played it. I will eventually. Like the series.
it's a really fun game. I mean,
Yeah, I'll get into it eventually. Just again, priorities
that's
have other games in its way.
that's I pulled an orc on that one. I actually bought that 3 times, believe it or not.
5?
Mm-hmm.
How on earth did you buy 5 3 times? It's not even that
Well,
old.
I got it for Xbox 360,
Right.
and then they remastered it for the Xbox One, and then I bought it was on sale, and I bought it on the PlayStation.
Okay. I kind of get it.
Um, at the time, I played it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I like open world games.
Oh yeah, super fun.
Looking forward to the new Red Dead Redemption. Whenever, I guess that's coming out probably November.
Like,
but
is it that far off or that close? November? I thought it was.
I would think it's coming out for Christmas, right?
Okay, it is coming up before the new year. I wasn't sure. I was fuzzy on that. Anyway,
I could be wrong.
I'll be a bit behind. I'm not going to play that then. I'm going to hopefully
either.
get Spider-Man around Christmas, and I've already pre-ordered Kingdom Hearts because I'll pay through the nose for that, and that's the end of January. I have no money for that, but I'll figure it out.
Really? January release? That's odd.
It's January 29th. Isn't that stupid?
Wow.
It's really stupid, but yeah. So, yeah, after all Christmas fun has come and gone, I'm going to go plunk down like $100 on it.
Wow.
Because it's a special deluxe edition, because I'm crazy.
I'm not buying anything new. I've got too many games that I haven't played through yet.
No,
I
good
went a
to
little
know.
crazy there for a
That's a,
while.
I bought a fair amount of games over the summer, but they were all lower tier games or used or old or downloads or like that. It's been a long time since I bought like a new PlayStation game, like new. And Spider-Man will be the first one, but like I said, I don't know if I'm going to buy it. I might get it for Christmas. Maybe my parents will get it for me. We shall see. Well, we can wrap up, I guess, on The Brood. Which
And we've got more
I
figure
know,
skating talk.
I
We've
know
got
we were
more.
all over the place tonight, but as
We
we
got to
said,
get.
sometimes it happens, and it's okay though because we are big Cronenberg fans, and we'll talk about more Cronenberg and stuff. But I think like the most interesting stuff about The Brood is I like how it shows that progression from his earliest movies, like those first three. It's not like they're a trilogy or anything, but you see how they have a lot of similar elements and how they build up. And The Brood is where, yeah, he really can. Even though it's not really until towards the end, like the last 15 minutes, when you really get to see some interesting body horror that he
There's not enough
becomes
sex
quite
in it
known
either.
for.
It needs to be more sex for it to be a
Yeah,
Cronenberg film.
it was one of the least sexual films he's done besides Scanners. But yeah, that's usually one of the big elements going on here is sex. In fact, the big thing here is that she's giving birth asexually.
Yeah.
Or what? We had the term. I need to find it again.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the term that like bed bugs used to reproduce or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Where it just falls off of you.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I lost it because I've been clicking and looking at different stuff. Oh, she parthenogenetically gives birth. So that is the term, parthenogenetically. Parthenogenetically. So that's, giving birth without sexual reproduction and also having the external womb or whatever as she shows off. Which is a great reveal moment because, like, you're expecting something weird and gross and stuff. And then she just, like, lifts it up. She's like, do you see? And it's like, oh, my God. And then, yeah, like you said, she, like, bites it open and there's her thing. And he's trying to keep it together. And she's like, like you said, I disgust you.
Well, she kept licking the damn thing until he was just, about to throw up.
Yeah, really baiting him. As you said, it played to people's expectations because I think there's a certain audience that was waiting for a way for him to like put everything right and save her. But there isn't. It's like she's too far gone, and now she's a threat to their own daughter, so he has to kill her. So again, very different from your typical movie where our protagonist more or less murders supposedly somewhat of a defenseless woman, or whatever you want to say. But again, it's the only way to save his own daughter, who's about to get ripped apart by her brood, her vicious offspring, with their colorful snowsuits. That's what I think. Like, I wish there was a scene of her like lining them up and dressing them. That would have been funny. Like, don't worry, I've got these snowsuits for everybody.
Blue,
red,
orange, green.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely this movie gets bonus points for having creepy children, which is always a scary thing. These are creepy, deformed, weird, different children, but still children.
Very taboo, also.
Yeah, very taboo. And all les enfants terribles, as you'd say. But yeah, a cool movie. I'm glad I finally saw it after all these years. Again, I always felt like I already kind of seen it because I kind of knew everything that happened in it, but still good to see. And yeah, the soundtrack kind of surprised me. I knew that Shore did all his music and stuff, and I'm well aware of the soundtracks. But yeah, give it a listen, and it sounds so much like the first Friday the 13th in some moments. The high like string parts and stuff. It's really close. But yeah, the movie's got very good music. For sure, and yeah, this is their first collaboration, and from then on, he'd be with him pretty much the whole way, except for the Dead Zone, oddly enough. But as you said, probably some studio interference on that movie.
Yeah.
But we will do another Cronenberg, probably do several more because we're big fans. So that'll probably be something we do as we go forward in the shows. Eventually we'll toss in another Cronenberg here and there because we both like him and really like to discuss his work. This one was more, I guess, for my benefit because I wanted to see it. So I realized there was a little bit less discussion on this one because it's kind of a straightforward. Well, you know what we mean by straightforward because it's not straightforward, but it's a short movie with like not like a bunch of subplots or things and stuff to analyze. So we were all over the place tonight in our extra topics, but that's part of the charm of our show, I'm sure, as our regular audience would know. So Thanks a lot for being with us. And as we lead up to Halloween, we'll keep some of the, creepy, weird stuff going because that's the mood we all find ourselves in. But that'll probably do it for now. So thanks so much for watching, guys. And we'll try to be a little better about announcing the show. I feel bad. We actually knew because I wound up canceling last week that the Brood. I should have made an earlier announcement so people could have known sooner that we were doing the Brood, and I didn't. So this time, hopefully, we will announce a little quicker for you what the next episode is. We don't know what it is now, but we're going to discuss that and figure it out in the short term. So we'll try to do an announcement at least a few days prior to give people more of a heads up, get things together here. So yeah, thanks a lot again, and that's going to do it. So thanks very much. Have a good night, and we will see you in a week. Peace out.
Good night.